Thank you everyone for joining us today for the presentation. My name's Jake Port. I'm an assistant lecturer in the Global Challenges degree and also a very lucky alumni of the Global Challenges degree as well. So I've kind of got that sort of dual teaching plus being a student kind of insight for today. And I also work alongside the amazing Associate Professor Duke of Veldhuis, who you'll be hearing from soon. And we've also got the amazing Anita, who's one of our third year students, who will also be on hand today to answer any of your questions and give you that sort of current student insight. So Anita's been up to lots of amazing things as well. So to get straight into it, we have a message from Duke to share with you today, and I'll get that on here.
Hello everyone. Welcome to this information session on the Bachelor of Science Advanced Global Challenges. My name is Duke of Veldhuis and I'm the course director. Alongside my colleagues and current students, we would love to give you an overview of everything the Global Challenges course has to offer. Now, we're aware that we might not be able to cover everything, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with us, either by email or by phone. Our contact details will be on display both at the beginning and the end of this session. So why Global Challenges, you might ask? As a matter of fact, what am I doing here? Well, this is exactly the course that I would have chosen as an undergraduate if it had existed. Instead, I had a broad background in archaeology and anthropology, focusing in the end on human behavior and stress in human populations. And in order to do that work, I realized I needed much more than just an understanding of hormones and endocrinology in general. What I also needed to do is understand psychology of human behavior and behavior change. And along that path, I took many diversions. I moved into journalism, public engagement in science, and science communication, ultimately coming together with a real interest in solving interdisciplinary problems at the intersection of government, public, and society. And in order to do that, I needed a much bigger toolkit. That toolkit is exactly what we aim to offer our Global Challenges students. You will come out with a major and minor in a scientific discipline of your choice, much more on that shortly. But more pointedly, you will also be exposed to leaders from across industry, government, and the charitable sector. You will be actively working on practical problems. And that's exactly the ethos with which Global Challenges was designed. Our aim was to build the additional skill sets that would put students such as yourselves in a place to affect change in society. We will work with you to cultivate not only multidisciplinary skill sets, but also give you an opportunity to personalize your education and choose where you want to focus, whether that is halfway across the world on international exchange or internships, or whether that is perhaps even very specifically, perhaps you do want to do a PhD in research. All of these are possible. Our graduates are working in all sectors of society, and the opportunities are evident wherever you go. We hope that we will.
Cool. Thanks, Duke. So basically, in the same light of what Duke has been talking about, and when you get asked the question, what is the point of Global Challenges? Why does it exist? It's really to provide that interdisciplinary skill set. The world is full of global challenges, lots of things we've got to work on today. And one of the key skills that people are looking for is the ability to not just talk science, but to talk business, to talk other areas of the world at the same time, and branch and bridge those gaps that exist. So that's what Global Challenges aims to do. We provide training, we provide experiences, we provide insights into these different worlds to really build that holistic understanding and to give you access to people, businesses, and opportunities that may not be able to be achieved through the standard science degree. So what's the structure of the course like? Global Challenges is similar to a standard science degree, except that it has these impact through science units. Now, I'm not going to go into the hyper details of the exact structuring within your normal science degree. You should definitely go and speak to the general science team about that, and they can be super helpful with that. But the key things to take away with the question of how does the Global Challenges degree structure differ to a standard science degree is these impact through science units. They are only available to Global Challenges students, and it's where we do all that workshop-based activities that make Global Challenges what it is. You also have the opportunity to do electives as part of the degree to branch out into other areas of the university that may not be science related. I did them in arts, in business, people do law units, people do accounting units, something that takes your interest and really broadens your horizons. What are we doing within these impact through science units? We're looking at the big challenges of our times. We're looking at how we can be mentored by current leaders and learn from their experiences and draw on those to affect positive change in the world. We're looking at leadership, what defines a leader, what may not be a leader, what may be a leader, and is that even something that you can define? And how do we persuasively communicate, not just with people in science, but within the broader world to really affect positive change? You then have your honours year, which is the year 4, which I'll be getting to soon. As standard with the Monash Science degree, you have access to all of the broad range of science majors, and there's a lot there. I'm not going to go through all of them, but lots of opportunities within the health, chemistry, biology, physics spaces, you name it. Monash generally has a science major that aligns with this. I did immunology because that was a passion interest of mine, but there are so many opportunities there that you can explore within your first year of degree and really understand what really drives you and interests you. So the first year of the course, what does it look like? In this year, we're really trying to aim for a tactile learning experience. We want students immersed in globally relevant subjects like climate change, communication of science, the spread of vaccination of viral diseases. How do we implement effective policy to help those who are homeless? How do we implement renewable energy production? You can't see the slides. Oh no. Let me get that slide back. Sorry, everyone. Cool. This might be, is it visible now, Michaela?
Sure is. That looks much better.
Yeah, cool. That's all good. Great.
Thanks.
Sorry, everyone. There were some beautiful slides I wanted to show. That's okay. Anyway, to keep going. So the first year of the course. So there are 3 key components of this year: leadership, teamwork, science and cross-cultural communication, and science policy. What do we mean by this? Well, leadership and teamwork, how do we work in teams together? How do we demonstrate leadership? How do we allow others to lead? This is some of the things that we explore as part of this year. Science and cross-cultural communication. We live in a diverse world, lots of different people. There are cultural considerations to how we interact with one another, how we interpret information, how we approach global challenges. And we need to understand these to best work with not just people in our local vicinity, but on a global scale. And science policy. How do we affect change at high levels of government? How do we make things happen in areas that we are passionate about? Well, we have to understand how science can be implemented as part of policy as well. And you can see some pictures of students being out and about in the real world too. So this isn't just class workshop-based stuff, but we actually get students, COVID allowing, out into the real world to go and talk to people, engage with those topics, engage with those subject matters, and really hear on the ground what's going on. We also have flash talks, which are 60-second presentations on topics that are important to the students. We have leadership dialogues where we get external speakers in important areas to come and speak to the students and really talk about what they do and give a real insight into some of the pathways that exist within the science space. So year 2, what is year 2? Well, we're really bringing the business world in and pushing students to branch out as a result of that. We really guide students to the world of business through not just assessment, which is both proactive and deliverables based, but also reflective. But we also focus on being productive and collaborating with one another. There are 3 key components of this year to really break down. One is management consulting, where students really go through the process of emulating what it would be like to work for a global organization. This means understanding what are the problems that they're facing, building solutions to those problems, and using the training we provide in class around customer discovery, assumption mapping, and canvassing to really understand how do we strategically address these problems on what real companies are facing today. We've got biomimicry, which is emulating nature's principles in the scientific space. Nature's had billions of years to perfect and optimize the way it operates. How can we as scientists really build an understanding around that and harness that knowledge to develop intuitive, innovative solutions to the problems that we're facing today? So this involves students going out again, as is, the consistent theme, into the real world, tactfully feeling what is the space that we exist in? How can we learn from those biological structures and use biomimetic principles to replicate that in a way that really benefits us? It's an incredibly popular few weeks as part of the course, not just for those in the biology space, but for the engineering and other areas where we're really taking that inspiration from nature and using it to suit our agenda. And finally, as part of that year, we have the entrepreneurship and innovation space. This is super exciting. This is where we have students coming together on a common passion or interest and building potentially a business out of it. Now, we don't expect everyone to launch a business from that semester or from that year, but what we do want them to do is understand how to interact with the business world about something that they're passionate about. What does this mean? This means pitching. How do we pitch an idea, not just for money, but for support, for advice, for mentorship, and to build community around something that we care about? How do we do lean canvassing? How do we put ideas that are in our head onto a structured format that allows us to analyze how this business might operate in the real world, and then going and doing something about it, going and interviewing potential customers, going producing prototypes. And as I say this, and this might resonate with you all too, this isn't necessarily what you associate with standard scientific degree, but this is the point of global challenges. We provide science, but we also provide additional skills which are highly useful in dealing with global challenges on a broader scale. So you can see here some pictures of some students that have been in the past that they're pitching their ideas, right? They're sharing their ideas with others. And we've had some fantastic ideas that come out of this course. We've had a number of different businesses start out of it. So again, it's not an expectation, but it just speaks to the kind of work that we do in class. Finally, also as part of this year, you'll be engaging in policy advocacy. So you might have, I mentioned earlier about understanding how policy can affect change. Well, we actually provide specific training about how to produce advocacy material. As an example, last year we had a team that was advocating for homeless women to have free and ready access to sanitary products, right? So we helped them to understand how they can articulate the importance of something like this, how they can strategically speak to people that can affect change. And this resulted in actually a LinkedIn presentation last year that had over 50 people, both from the public and from government, attending to really talk about these kinds of important issues. So we really focus on how do we use government policy to effectively instigate change. So it's super exciting this year. And that leads on to the third year. So the third year is where we really pivot from theory to application in a broad sense, right? So in the third year, you'll be undertaking both an internship that you organize, and we can help you organize that as well, but an internship that may be domestic or international, depending on where the world is at the time. I personally did my international internship at Cambridge University. And when I was doing the course at the time, you also had to do a domestic as well. So I did my Cosmos Science magazine as an example. We have students all over the world, and you can see examples here of some of the things that students have done. In this third year, we're really going on this tactile, hands-on learning approach where we want students to be working, not just theoretically on what companies are doing, but actually what companies are doing. So that means partnering with real companies, both within the Monash and broader space, on things that they are working on right now, and students having the opportunity to actively develop technology, knowledge, deliverables, and other things that they need at that time. So these are 4 examples of things that have happened in the past, and you can see there's quite a wide range there. Everything from New South Wales Department of Primary Industries working on agriculture to sensory systems to detect nocturnal animals in a very non-invasive way. The key focus of this year is that we ensure that students understand how to work with industry partners, how to provide deliverables for those partners, how to manage their own projects, and how to deal with issues as they come up along the way. So it's a very hands-on unit. We have our workshops as we do every year for Global Challenges. There are no lectures style, where you sit and just listen for an hour or two, and there's no exams. We just have workshops. And when I say no exams, I should be clear that that is no exams for the impact through science units, not for your other science units. I only speak to Global Challenges, impact through science units in this case. But we really focus on workshop-based activities where students can work on these projects, seek advice from us, seek training on how to manage projects, and go and do them with a real world partner rather just something in the theoretical space. There's also the bonus possibility of exchange. Again, with the world being where it's at, we'll see how that goes. But we have got students who have in the past done exchange overseas, and that's been a super exciting area for students to go into. It's something that they've really enjoyed. So third year is that pivot from theory to application. It's, you know, a shorter project within the second semester for 12 weeks of working on this stuff, with the first semester being the internship opportunity. What does honours look like then? Well, rather than me telling you straight up what we're doing in the honours space, let me get some of our students to share their projects with you.
Often all you're told about scientists is they wear a white lab coat and they're in the lab, and I knew that wasn't for me. I'm a people person. I need to be out there interacting with people, feeling like I was making a difference on the ground. So when I saw that the Global Challenges degree offered that side of it, where you have your impact through science as a specific unit you do every single semester, I was in love straight away.
I came here with Mum and did the whole tour as you do in year 12. We're like, that actually looks really good. Like, it shows you that you're going to be learning skills and, you know, applying these skills in a proper setting and changing things.
The more I read about global challenges, the more I realised that that was exactly what I was after, because I was interested in science, but I was also interested in international development and this urban planning.
I came into this course having no idea what I wanted to do, and that's what drew me to it, because I knew that I was really passionate about science and this idea of being able to use science as a vehicle to make change and use it in different contexts. I was like, yep, that's me.
Our supervisor, John Warner, is a very passionate guy, and he came to us with the brief of ocean plastics, and that was it. We kind of came to the conclusion that microplastics were the thing to work on, because that's kind of the big emerging field and consequence in ocean plastics. They get down to, you know, microns in size, and anything can eat them at that point. You know, plankton, tiny fish, and then something will eat those plankton and those tiny fish. And they'll, you know, travel up the food chain and accumulate in bigger and bigger animal stomachs until eventually they get to us. So we've found microplastics in seafood, we've found them in beer, we've found them in honey.
It's very much at that front end of things, looking at, well, what's the situation on the ground? What do these little bits of plastic look like? And what information that we get there we could actually use to create our solution.
We don't really know a whole lot about microplastics in the environment. We don't know what their properties are. We don't know if they're charged, how big they are, whether they're polyethylene or polypropylene or polystyrene, and what that distribution is.
We've been working on methods for detecting polymers and microplastics in rivers and streams, and trying to use a spectroscopic technique, so basically a detection technique, to see if we can get those polymers in a sample and kind of characterise those.
In the urban streams, so the little creeks and rivers around Melbourne, what those bits of plastic are in terms of polymer type, what size, what particle type, are they fibres of our clothes, are they little bits of chip packet?
Some polymers can fluoresce, so when you shine a light on them, they kind of like shine a light back at you. And that seemed to be the most kind of promising technique, and something that we could actually make from a kind of like a lab scale instrument into something that could be handheld and actually used in the field.
I think we were successful in really diving into the option of using fluorescence spectroscopy and starting to realise that could actually potentially be used, and it's very easy to miniaturise, could potentially be used to detect some types of plastics as well.
People just don't have an understanding of the microplastic problem
and the extent particularly of the microplastic problem. And from the teachers that we've spoken to through a series of interviews, they have been like, wow, like this is huge. This is something that we need to be talking about in our classrooms. These are the barriers that we think there are to implementation. And we've been working on solutions to try and overcome those.
Currently, with the reporting mechanisms for when an instance of sexual violence occurs within aged care, it's not actually included if it's not reportable to the Department of Health if the perpetrator is a other resident with a cognitive impairment like dementia.
Almost half of people in residential aged care have dementia. These people are not getting the dignity of and the I guess the attention of having a report made for them once they do disclose an event of sexual assault on them.
They might need to access a lawyer, they might need to access a safe housing option, they might need to change aged care facilities, they might need to get a forensic examination, they might need to see a doctor to get an STI test, they might need to see a trauma counsellor, and the list just goes on and on and on. And we're expecting people that have experienced a really awful trauma, who might already have a cognitive impairment and other physical disabilities, to then go and figure out themselves all those people to call. We initially created the 7 recommendations with a panel, going through what the key problems were, what some ideas were. Then we went away, got them into a 10. Then we presented them at a seminar where we got feedback on them, who were mainly aged care workers. And then we kind of funneled them down and fixed them a bit, and then took them to Canberra, where we presented them to different politicians from 6 different political parties. And so there is a lot of disbelief, but we were never ever met with that doesn't happen. And I guess that's the first step to creating change.
I think it's important to be advocates for a group that doesn't necessarily represent what you are now, but, you know, we're going to be old one day too. And I'd hate to think that my parents, or even, you know, if this thing goes on till the time that I need to be in aged care, I'd hate to think that I won't have the voice then, but I've got the voice now.
Cool. So I just wanted to share that video first, because we often get the question of, well, what is honours in global challenges? And rather than just tell you, I think it's easier to sometimes to show. So as you can see, those were 2 very different projects that we've had in the past for honours. And they are true industry-based projects. We are working on real-world current problems that the organisation, the business is facing. You can see some examples of people we've partnered with there. So government, not-for-profit, private industry. There's a whole range of things there. The key points to make here is that as part of this honours, you're still providing the things that you would normally in an honours year. So you're doing a literature review, a thesis, you're presenting those findings, and you're doing a presentation on that work. So the key difference between a standard honours year is that for the whole year, you're generally working on your own on a project of some type. With global challenges, the first semester of honours is that individual component. You do your thesis, you do your literature review, but you're working as part of a team of 2, 3, 4 other students in the same organisation. Then in that second semester, you come together, bring that knowledge together to deliver something that's relevant to that project, harnessing the knowledge and understanding and skills that you've built over that first semester. So it's a really fun year. It was probably the best year of my course. I did mine with the Victorian Institute of Forensic Medicine, as you just saw, but in the previous year, and we were looking at methamphetamine abuse in rural communities, and how do we improve drug education messaging. We've also had teams that have presented to royal commissions. We've had teams that have developed new technology and sensor packages. We've had teams providing cutting edge computational and mathematical work for for government and private industry. So there's a huge range, and it's really hard to articulate all of them now. So I'd really encourage, if you want to find out more about the honours year and the different kinds of projects we've done, then come and ask myself or Anita. And also, I wasn't aware, but I've just been told that we've also got Jack, who's also one of our students, and we can all help with that kind of stuff. So we're really happy to assist with that. But the key thing is industry-based project working on a real issue that organization is facing and actively working hand in hand to address that, to, in a way, give you some experiences that actually really helps with the next step in your life, which will probably be some kind of employment, which really leads me on to the next slide. So to answer the question that, again, we get regularly, which is, where does Global Challenges take you, right? There's a huge list. There is a massive list. The course has only been running for about 6 or 7 years, and the list is so massive that we can't fit it all into one screen. So what I've got here is some broad examples of specific jobs that Global Challenges students have gone into, right? So we've got financial services and consulting. This can be not-for-profit. It can be government. You've got Australia Post. You've got 180 degrees consulting. I've also worked at PwC in an R&D tax role. There's a huge amount of roles that people go into the consulting space because it's a great area to go and work on big projects and really affect change. You've also got research. Research is a perfectly acceptable thing to come out of Global Challenges. Whilst we give you skills to go and work in both the scientific and business and broader government spaces, we still encourage you to pursue what interests you. We've got students right now who are working as part of the World Mosquito Program, looking at how we can eliminate the spread of mosquito-borne diseases such as chikungunya and dengue, cutting edge stuff. We've got students working at the World Children's Hospital Foundation, working on generating funds for really important work. So there's a lot going on in the research space that students are doing right now. We've also got environment and sustainability. A lot of Global Challenges students have a real passion for the environment, for global warming, for the conservation of nature, and harnessing the power of nature to really create a more green and sustainable world. So we've got a number of students working in both government and private areas, both in Australia and overseas. We've got a student who's right now working in San Francisco as part of an organization that does impact investing, so investing money into projects to have the largest social and environmental impact that it possibly can. And finally, we've also got sort of what I call the others, the ones that don't fit into one specific thing. But you can see here, even just in this list, a huge range of different areas that people are working in, right? So the key takeaway from the question of where do Global Challenges students go to is kind of anywhere you want to go. And this is what I say to students when I speak to them, prospective students, is there is no limit. There is no defined outcome. You pursue what you're passionate about. You can go and work in a space that you care about, regardless of what that is generally. So the options are massive. And that is something that I think is really special about Global Challenges, is that you're not constrained to going down one particular pathway. You can go whichever way you want to. So, of course, there are always more questions to ask. You can see there, Duca, her contact details, as well as mine. Please reach out to us. It's one of the best parts of my job, is getting to speak to prospective students, hearing about what you're looking for, being able to answer your questions and provide support along that journey. So please feel free to reach out. You've also got an awesome opportunity today to speak to both Anita and Jack about their experiences as current students and through the chat functions in our booth. So thank you all very much for coming along today digitally and having a listen. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions now.